Listen to me for a minute. I'm 80 years old, and I've spent more than half my life frozen in place, watching opportunities turn to dust because I was too afraid to reach for them. Fear became my compass. It told me when to stay quiet, when to play it safe, when to convince myself that waiting was wisdom. And I listened. God, I listened for decades. Now I'm here to tell you something that might save you from the same prison I built for myself. Hesitation doesn't protect you from painted guarantees. You'll drown in regret. This isn't a theory. This is my life. And if you know someone who's stuck right now, paralyzed by what ifs and maybes, do me a favor, press that hype button on this video, because the people you love, the ones who are terrified to move forward, they need to hear this. And they won't unless you help push it to them. Here's what nobody tells you about fear. It disguises itself as logic. I spent years thinking I was being smart, strategic, careful. But I wasn't being careful, I was being a coward. And the worst part, I believed my own excuses. I told myself I was waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, the right guarantee that everything would work out. That's what fear does. It makes you think you're being reasonable while it quietly steals your entire life. I grew up in Pennsylvania in the late 50s and 60s. My father worked at a steel mill, came home exhausted, never talked much. My mother kept the house running, kept us fed, kept everything together with duct tape and determination. I learned early that safety meant keeping your head down. Don't rock the boat. Don't take risks. Get a job, keep it, retire, die. That was the blueprint, and I followed it like gospel. In 1968, I graduated high school and got a job at an insurance company doing data entry. It was supposed to be temporary. I was supposed to figure out what I really wanted, but temporary became permanent because that's what happens when you're too afraid to choose something different. I told myself I'd leave once I had enough saved up, once I figured out my real passion, once the timing was perfect. Meanwhile, 1,968 turned into 1,975, then 1,985, then 1,995. I blinked, and I was 50 years old, still sitting at the same desk, still telling myself I'd make a move soon. The turning point came in 2001. I was 55 years old. My wife, Susan, we'd been married 30 years by then. She came to me one evening in September, right after the towers fell. Everything felt fragile that month. The whole country was holding its breath. She sat down at our kitchen table in our house in Lancaster, looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, and she said something I'll never forget. She recounted it to me later, and I can still hear her voice. You've been talking about starting your own consulting business since 1987. That's 14 years, Tom. 14 years of maybe next year. I'm not angry. I'm just sad. Because I've watched you disappear into your own fear, and I don't know how to reach you anymore. I sat there, frozen, the same way I've been frozen my entire adult life. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to defend myself, explain all the reasons why waiting made sense, but I couldn't, because she was right. I'd been running from risk for so long that I'd forgotten how to move toward anything. And in that moment, I made a choice. Not the choice to finally act. No, I made the choice to keep hesitating. I told her I'd think about it. I told her we needed to be smart, especially with the economy uncertain. I told her all the things fear whispers when it wants you to stay put, and she nodded, tired, resigned. She stopped pushing after that night, and that might be the saddest part of all. The painful realization didn't hit me all at once. It built slowly, year after year, like rust eating through metal. Susan and I stayed together, but something fundamental shifted after that conversation. She stopped asking me about my dreams. She stopped believing I was capable of change. And honestly, I stopped believing it too. I retired from the insurance company in 2011 at 65 after 43 years. They gave me a plaque and a small pension. I remember standing at my goodbye party, looking around at people I'd worked with for decades and feeling absolutely nothing. No pride, no sense of accomplishment, just emptiness, because I knew I'd wasted it, all of it. I'd chosen fear over action so many times that it became my identity. And the cost wasn't abstract. It was concrete, measurable, devastating. I never started that consulting business. The expertise I'd built over 4 decades, gone, irrelevant. By the time I retired, the industry had changed so much that my knowledge was obsolete. I'd missed the window, not because I wasn't capable, but because I was too afraid to open it when it was still there. My relationship with Susan never recovered. She died in 2019, and one of my deepest regrets is that she spent the last 18 years of her life married to a man who chose safety over partnership, hesitation over possibility. I thought I was protecting us. I was wrong. I was protecting my fear. My kids, I have 2 sons, they learned from watching me. They learned that dreams are things you talk about, but never pursue. They learned that risk is dangerous and comfort is king. And now I see them both in their 50s, stuck in jobs they hate, too afraid to change course. They're repeating my pattern. And I put it there, here's the universal truth I learned too late. Fear isn't keeping you safe, it's keeping you small. And the American dream we were sold, the one that says steady and safe equals success, it's a lie that's poisoning millions of people right now, especially men my age and younger. We were taught that hesitation is wisdom, that waiting for certainty is smart. But life doesn't offer certainty, it offers moments. And those moments don't wait for you to feel ready. They vanish. Think of it like standing at a train station. You can see the train coming, you know where it's going. You even have a ticket in your hand. But you don't board because you're worried about the cost, the risk, what might go wrong. So you wait. The train leaves. And you tell yourself another one will come. And maybe it does. But each train that passes takes you further from where you wanted to go. Eventually, you're standing on an empty platform at 80 years old, realizing that you spent your whole life waiting for a guarantee that was never coming. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. How long have you been talking about making a change? What dream have you been pushing to someday for the past 5 years? 10 years? 20 years? What would you do right now if you really knew that hesitation would cost you everything? When was the last time you chose possibility over safety? And here's the hardest question. If you keep living the way you're living right now, making the same choices you're making right now, what will your life look like in 20 years? Will you be proud? Or will you be me, sitting in a quiet house, looking back at decades of frozen moments, wishing you'd been brave enough to move. I'm telling you this because I care. Because I see you hesitating and I recognize it. It's the same trap I fell into. And it gets harder to escape the longer you wait. I'm 80 years old now, here in 2026. I live alone in a small apartment in Lancaster. My days are quiet. I read. I watch TV. I go for walks when my knees allow it. And I think, God, I think all the time about the life I could have lived if I'd chosen action over fear just once. Just one time. I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes energy I don't have. I'm just sad and tired and determined that maybe, just maybe, someone hearing this will make a different choice. Fear will always find a reason for you to wait, but courage only needs one reason to move, because you're still alive, and that means it's not too late yet. Thank you for listening to An Old Man's Truth. If this landed with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me what you've been afraid to start. This channel exists to share real senior life advice and no sugarcoating, just lived experience. I hope it helps you avoid the mistakes I made.